Right, well, thanks, Ron. Thanks for joining Architect Tomorrow.
Yeah.
And thanks for organising a fun co-working space for us to have this conversation in, so that's much appreciated.
Yeah.
Perhaps you can kick us off by giving us a bit of an overview of who you're about and what futuring architectures is. That would be a great place to start.
Yeah. I get that question a lot. So thank you for having me. It's really appreciated. Let me start by doing a trip down memory lane.
Sure.
Right? I mean, so one of the ways I keep introducing myself by saying I'm a recovering programmer.
I like it. Okay.
Yeah, it's because it sounds sad when I now going to say it, but I mean my life changed when I literally laid my hands on a Sinclair ZX81 in 1980. Right, and like with many boys in that age, I mean life changed. Right?
It was a BBC Micro and then a very early IBM for me, but
I couldn't afford the BBC ones, so they were massively expensive. So I had the whole family, right? The various Sinclairs and of course the Commodores and the Amiga. Oh, I still love that machine. I spent way too much time.
The Amigas were great for games, weren't they?
Oh yeah, fantastic. So I picked up this. I mean, I still have it today. The fascination of programming this machine.
Okay.
What I also did quite quickly, and I think this is an interesting one. When I was just contemplating this, I always quickly picked up hacking. Right, that you get the machine to do things it wasn't designed to do. Right. It can only do 4 colors, and I found a way that it could do 16 colors.
Okay.
Hey, so this whole aspect that and that's this software thing.
Mm-hmm.
It will be used in ways you never intended.
Right.
And that really shaped my career. I finished university in 1992, which, by the way, is the start of the World Wide Web. Right. So then.
Very early World Wide Web.
Very early. Yeah. I can still remember that the company I worked in, my first job, we were at the homepage of the Mosaic browser.
Okay.
I actually sent this guy called Mark Andreessen a mail to actually put our company on that. It had a built-in homepage, right? So we were on the second page, the first company on the second page. So that's my claim to fame. I once sent Mark Andreessen a mail. Now, what's interesting about I think the World Wide Web is that from programming, I quickly went into architecting software, right? Because you have a client and a server, actually multiple servers. And multiple clients, and a single client is going to use more servers. So how are you going to partition this? If you do a software update, how do you update all your various servers, right? I mean, backwards compatibility is a really superpower to have. How do you do this? So a lot of software architecting, right? And then of course over the decades, actually you have to say, is that software went from something on a desk in an office, on a computer for an office worker, to something in everyone's hands, right? So, and that's also my shift from software architecture to, in the end, enterprise architecture, or at least my definition of enterprise architecture, which is not just software, not just IT, but how do you organize? How do we organize ourselves? Who do we organize for? Who is allowed to be part of this? Right. So, and that's the current place I occupy. Right. And that's how we got to futuring architectures. It's this started as a joke.
Okay.
I mean, all great things in life start as a joke, right? So I think more than 10 years ago, I had this design framework called FAST. For some reasons, it had to be called FAST.
Okay.
And of course, what does FAST mean? So I think probably with the help of a beer, I came up with futuring architectures for sustaining transitions.
Okay, I was going to ask you about the ST. It's interesting.
For sustaining transitions, and that rather fitted what we wanted to do. It still does. And that's how we got to futuring architectures. And the reason, what I really like about that phrase, apart from the fact that I have been carried it around for almost a decade, is the futuring bit. Not future, but futuring. Constantly iterating on what could be.
Creating the future, right?
Imagining the future, or the futures, and that's the architectures bit, right? That's the multiple bit, and decide which one we think is worthwhile pursuing and come through. But it's dynamic and it's not singular, right? I'm gonna be a bit a contrarian enterprise architect.
Okay.
I hate the phrase end state.
Or target state.
Or target state. You know, the one target state, right? I mean, it's the...
for me, the cone is the wrong way around. You're not going to go into one end state. You're opening up into a range of different potentials.
This is literally the future's cone, right? The thing expands from the possible, the probable, the plausible. I think that's the...
I mean, I don't know how much you've seen Magnus Lindqvist, his Futures book is great.
Yeah.
And this sort of concept of the cone of uncertainty is really interesting. I think the role is architects to help organisations navigate through that uncertainty and work their way forwards.
Yeah, I think that's honestly, and that's why I said my peculiar definition enterprise architecture. That's the one,
right?
And that's not an IT function. It's enabled by digital technology,
sure.
Right? But it's that to envision and then navigate the futures. Well, we see or can feel, and sometimes it's very intuitive,
right?
And that's the fun bit.
Yeah. So, how much of this is your personal side project versus what your day-to-day life looks like at ING? Because whenever I've looked at your profile, I'm a bit like, I don't know if it's a bit like my Architect Tomorrow, and Architect Tomorrow is very much a sort of side hustle thing for me, and yes, sometimes it crosses over with work, but for you, it feels like maybe Futuring Architectures is actually your day job.
It's the I get that question a lot.
Okay.
I mean, I think so. I have this. I don't know, let's call it principle, is that I define my job. My job doesn't define me.
Okay.
And I'm really motivated by this, the promise of futuring architecture. So that's what I do also in my day-to-day job at this wonderful organization called ING, right? I'm part of the tech strategy and enterprise architecture group, right? It's the but my flavor, my energy, my promise I bring to that audience is the same promise as futuring architectures, and I think this is also a thing that happened over the decades. Organizations are much more open nowadays, right? I mean, if you just see the software we're consuming, right? It comes from multiple sources. If you have a SaaS solution, it's running somewhere else. So much of the stack is from somewhere else.
Or
open source, right? And our software engineers are contributing to open source. I mean, that would be even unimaginable and certainly laughable 2 decades ago.
Right.
And so what does this, there is no bounded box anymore. Okay. I mean, so what is this, what we are doing? Right? How did we meet? Is this a job thing? Is this a run thing? And the answer is yes. It's both. But for me personally, it's really important that I have this personal conviction in what I'm doing, and I happen to do this in my job. But I'm not doing the things because my job requires it, even though I don't believe in it. That I could never do. That's my rebellious hacking style.
Very good.
Yeah.
But this beautifully leads on to ecosystem because excuse me. Because I think one of the things that I've read quite a few things that you've done, but one of the big things that I really resonate with is the ecosystem concept.
Yeah.
I think the idea that enterprise architecture is just your organisation.
Yeah.
And actually, to a point, the boundaries now are quite permeable, right? And there's lots of interesting, opportunities to create markets and collaborate and innovate, with organisations that perhaps in previous generations would have been considered to be competitors. In other cases, there's the chance to collaborate and to sort of think about the future, not just from a technology standpoint, but from the sort of operating model and the ecosystem that surrounds your organisation is as interesting for me as what happens inside the organisation.
And the ecosystem, and that's my shtick, let's call it like that, exists. Yeah. Right, even if we don't want to.
Even if you don't play into it, it's still
even
there.
if you don't, it's still there. It's I mean, and I mean the Airbnb or the ecosystem Airbnb plays into exists and existed before Airbnb. And if Airbnb would vanish from planet Earth right now, it would continue in a different shape or form because as a big amplifier, right? The role of Airbnb would be vacated, but it exists. And I think that's a really important thing to understand. It's almost like a form of being humble, right? I mean, it's bigger than us, and we have to play to its strength and its potential and its possibility instead of putting us in the center of the universe, right?
Yeah.
As we for sure used to do in the good old days.
I guess for me, I'm interested in your take on this, but I mean, obviously, everyone is talking about AI at the moment, right?
Yeah.
It's just probably every conversation is featuring it at the moment. But when you look at the ecosystem, for me, the ecosystem has generally been about relationships. Generally, there's a human involved somewhere in that. So, with the rise of APIs, sure, there was sort of the ability for your organisation to provide a programmatic way into your organisation, but now with AI, and if we believe in the hype of agentic, and I just recorded an episode actually Beyond the Hype about agentic AI.
Awesome.
But if you believe in where that's going, there's going to be far more autonomy. I personally believe it's about augmenting humans still.
Yeah.
But I guess my point is the ecosystem. I think it's really interesting to think about how the ecosystem might change when it's not the human being that's in every interaction.
Yeah.
And what does the ecosystem look like when there's far more autonomous sort of agents going on?
Yeah.
Have you been thinking about that sort of?
Well, what the viewers don't know is that I was 15 minutes late for this recording.
Okay.
And the reason why I was 15 minutes late is because I extended my presentation on exactly this topic.
Okay, all right.
So the short answer is yes.
Okay, very good.
That's the Now, what I find fascinating, right? I mean, next to ecosystems is, technologies together form this system. Kevin Kelly calls this the technium.
Okay.
Basically, technology is almost acting as an organism, right? And it evolves in a certain way.
Like emergence, essentially.
Emergent, and it's and we have to find the way to have a symbiotic relationship with that. Techno-organism. Kevin Kelly is from California, so you get these slightly techno-utopian.
Okay.
But I think it's a fascinating phrase, and and I literally said in the presentation that made me be late here, is that I never been so excited about life in general, at Technium, since the beginning of the World Wide Web. And I was early, right, 1992.
Yeah.
And it's it's the same vibe, and it's not just a single company, right? And it's not just a single technology, and it's all these things happening in a way and in a shape and in a pace that even surprises its makers, right? I'm pretty sure the OpenAI people didn't expect the DeepSeek people to show up.
No, right? I think they were surprised even by the success of ChatGPT, let alone.
Indeed, I mean, there was recently a Wired article about. I mean, it's amazing, and so it's all these emergent, almost lucky, sometimes unlucky things, and the way it's shaping out. If you see how the cost per token is just exponentially going down.
Yeah.
Everybody now, by now we're all sick and tired about all the Studio Ghibli and Muppet pictures on LinkedIn, right? But this new image model in ChatGPT, which 1 million new subscribers in a day.
Right.
I mean, suppose this is true what Sam Altman said, right? That it got him 1 million new subscribers in a day. I always want to, I want to swear here, in an effing day, right? A million.
Yeah.
What is this? It's so fascinating. And one of my colleagues, again in the presentation that made me be late here, last time I'm going to say this, I mean, they literally said, it's all hyped, and it's real. And that's so fascinating. Well, the technology is real, right? I mean, the things you can do with pretty much for cheap, it's just amazing. The things you can create, the code it creates, right? Forget about the Studio Ghibli images, just the code it creates. The whole concept of vibe coding. Yeah. See, a lot of technical people do this. Sorry for pointing.
That's fine. Because there's another piece that I've done recently about the sort of what I call the sort of classes or taxonomy of enterprise AI deployment. Right?
Yeah.
And I think on the one hand you have vibe coding, and don't get me wrong, I've done a bit of it myself. Like it's cool, but then I think we have different sort of deployments depending on your risk appetite.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's but I mean, it's just fascinating the proudness with people show their vibe coded games or landing pages or God knows what. And then of course us technical people come in and we show all the holes and that it is bad and we make fun of them.
But it's the democratisation, I suppose, of the capability, isn't
it?
I mean, yes, we can make things more professional, more well engineered, but ultimately it's allowing people to kind of be quite creative with technology in a way that they couldn't before.
Yeah, and I mean, and I keep saying, right, in the phrase vibe coding, we, tech people, we focus on the coding bit.
Yeah.
The other ones, focus on the vibe bit. Right? They have this thing, they have this, I mean, I know people who are not software engineers and never identified as making software, made a piece of software for themselves. And they're mighty proud. Yeah. As in, I made this. It's me, it's mine, it's for me, it's for my family, it's for my small friend group. We're going to do a barbecue, and I made a barbecue app.
Right.
Yeah, of course, barbecue apps, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, and if you work as an organization as mine, a barbecue app is laughable. Right? But at the same time, it's real.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Because I wonder whether it's... Because I think software has always been hard because it's really hard to get inside someone's head and really understand what their vision is, right? And I feel like this is perhaps breaking down the barriers. Like previously obviously we had the waterfall era, didn't we, where we documented the hell out of everything and tried to precisely define everything. And then we've had Agile. This now feels like another wave of like, actually, we can prototype rapidly, not just by wireframing, but actually by getting vibe coding solutions up and running and then going, right, is this what I wanted? Well, no, it isn't. And actually, this thing works functionally, but non-functionally, we now need to re-engineer it. That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it, the past 60 years or 70 years, right, since the first commercial computer, we went down a particular road in programming the computer, right? I mean, first we had cards and we punched holes in it, right? And then we had a language called the formula translator. Fortran, right? It's the, I mean, and in my team, I invite interns who are not tech, because I really would love to see how they think and what they think about what we are doing. And inevitably, they always ask, "Can you teach me programming?" So of course, I teach programming. I'm not going to take something like C++, evil. No, I'm going to take Python. And the following thing always happens: after a day, they're done, because really all that detail and the semicolons. And I forgot a colon, and why doesn't it understand? And now, I mean, so we went down a very particular road in articulating solutions. I mean, it's in a very rational, down to the last bit specification, right? And now, just like you said, we have a way of pretty much programming the computer in, English. And of course, my tech friends say, but English is vague. Besides of not. You could also say English carries a lot of intent and implicit messages, right? That in our conversation we pick up on. In professional life we don't, and that's why we wrote all these requirements documents and wireframes and took ages, and then you get the software back and then you said, that's what I wrote down, but that's not what I meant, right?
And this beautifully brings me on to sort of something I've started doing a lot more, which is using Perplexity, particularly for researching these episodes, right? And what's hilarious for me is this works really, really well if the language is unambiguous. Like your name and Futuring Architectures is fairly unique, and generally finds content about you, right? You look for Oliver Cronk and Architect Tomorrow, you generally get me and my podcast. You search for other things, and the confabulation you get back, because fuzzy matching is still a problem, right? And actually we haven't solved this, and your point about human language is really interesting, because I think for certain things right now we're blown away because we've defined it in English language that isn't ambiguous, or in whatever language, human language. But when you get to a space where there's a lot of overlap, all of a sudden the wheels come off very rapidly, and it's like, wow, okay, this thing is really not robust. So it's interesting, but of course this is where I think the human is really important, right? It's that it's that steward that can make sure it isn't kind of going off the rails.
Yeah, indeed, and I think it's like I said, right? We have this particular model over the past 60 years. We also use this question and answer metaphor almost, right? I have a question, I get the answer, and if Excel says the answer is 12, it's 12. I thought it was 13, but okay, it's 12. I trust it, right? Because question answer. But now with this, I mean, again, with my name, Future Architects, you probably get something, but if my name would be John Doe, right, and it would be Scrum,
I mean, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and then of course, and then you get human intuition, human taste that said, I think this is not right, and you ask another question, and you have, it sounds weird, but you have a dialogue with the machine, right? So I think what I advocate for with this technology is don't go for a better answer, go for a better question.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Ask better questions.
And ask more. Ask it. Give me 3 solutions, and then you say, "Hey, wait a minute. You give me 3 answers. What's the difference? Can you tell me which one is better? Can you demonstrate differences?" Right. So you're actually exploring what you should have asked in the first place, but didn't know yet. The way we converse, right? If you tell me something, I said, "I don't get you."
There's then the feedback loop.
A colleague today showed me, another colleague is going to be pensioned off soon. I'm going to mention his name quickly. Koos, this one is for you. Oh, he shouldn't be knowing this. Okay, well, he was trying to generate an image with the new ChatGPT, had a very elaborate prompt, and ChatGPT said, well, this is a bit complicated. Can you leave this and this out of the prompt? Then I know how to do it better. So a computer actually says, yeah, it's a bit complicated. Can you leave this one out? That's brilliant. I mean, this is how you would respond. That's a bit much, Ron. If you leave this one out, I think I can do it. And maybe we can add it later. So this is almost this conversation thing, not a question, here's the answer, right? Like in science fiction, right? Like Orwell in Blake 7.
I mean, this is what's been exciting me, I suppose, about chain of thought recently. And here's a shout out to someone who's appeared on the podcast before. So Chris Booth and I worked on an open source agent framework called Infer, and the team's got logic as well. But one of the frustrations we had with language models was they're overconfidently just blurting out an answer when actually they need to get better at asking questions, because so the whole point of Infer was to try and create a framework that created enough context around the ask before creating the answer. And what's interesting about the chain of thought models is they are starting to do that themselves in build. Like when I ask something and it's too ambiguous, it will start to come back and say, Oliver, did you mean, well, obviously it won't call me by name unless I've got that in the prompt, but it'll say, what was it you meant? And that's really interesting. I get excited, but then unfortunately it's just a one-off. It doesn't continue to kind of ask. So for me, this human conversational element is really interesting, and there's a few bits missing, but I almost wonder whether there's sort of an element of, if you're good at delegating to a team, or you're a good consultant and you're good at asking questions, some of this stuff works better at the moment because it kind of relies on you being a good conversationalist.
I mean, it's the so one of the things the way I think is the same line of thought. I think how I articulated the old computer, right, the ZX81. What you bring to it is professional skill. Right, software engineer, you bring a professional skill in taming the beast. Right, I think what you see in chain of thought and having these discussions is what you bring in is personal taste, or intuition, or judgment,
decisioning.
It's you, right? You have a hunch. Sounds plausible. Not sure. And this was what I was asking, but why do I get better ask why? I can actually see the reasoning steps. When I see the reasoning steps, I start understanding better what I was intending to ask, right? I mean, so this is I keep emphasizing this, a very different mode of programming. And we have been trained to a very specific type of computer, right? The question, answer, and I bring my professional skill in hitting the right buttons.
And here's where I think maybe it's a classic architect thing that is overlooked in a lot of cases. A lot of people perhaps think of architects as the good translator between tech and business, but actually I think it's mindset shifting, which architects, the best architects.
Absolutely.
So I think right now we're going for a lot of mindset shifts. And much like we had to with the internet, with APIs, with other things, now it's the same mindset shift as stop thinking deterministically and think about embracing the non-determinism. What possibilities are unlocked.
And our ability to actually get this shift in mindset across to a large audience,
Yeah.
right? To people of all different walks of life, and it's and that's my plea to my colleagues, my direct peers, and that's my plea pretty much to the architecture community. I think it's us.
Yeah.
We are the mindset shifting narrative people.
Yeah.
It's I think that this is what, and I shouldn't be doing this, but I always look at proper architects. You know, that the guy,
the building architects.
Well, the building architects, right?
Yeah.
If you're I'm totally inspired by Frank Gehry.
Okay.
And the way he goes about in building, creating a new building, right? It's getting across the philosophy, the intent. So one thing he does, he makes models, but not nice models. He calls them Shrek models.
Okay.
So this ogre. So he makes them
Shrek as in the ogre. Okay.
as in the ogre. So he makes them ugly, or he makes them from bin liners and trash.
Okay.
Only for his audience, the people in the end paying him, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's to not look at the shiny bits, but look at the essence of the thing. What is this building?
Right.
How would you live there, work there? What would it do to how you approach work and life?
So you ignore the aesthetic and think about the function.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the essence of what the thing is, right? I mean, there is also this story that the architect of Sydney Opera House, I forgot his name. Shouldn't have forgotten the name. But apparently, when it wasn't built, it was just a grass plane, and he spent a lot of time just walking across the grass plane, pretending it was there, and what should it be like? How should it look like to get the essence, the energy, the vibe across? One more example, if I may. The Palm Pilot. Do you remember that one?
Palm Pilot?
Yeah, the old PDA.
Yeah.
The guy that designed that one, he made a prototype, and the prototype was a block of wood, in the shape and the weight intended for the Palm Pilot.
Okay.
And he just took that block of wood with a pencil to all his meetings, just to understand if would this work. Can I put it in my pocket?
Work?
Yeah, does it fit my life? And this is a roundabout way for me trying to that I totally agree on this mindset shift. Getting across what is this thing? What, for instance, what is generative AI in essence? Forget about the hype. Forget about all the promises of infinite wishes or the end of humanity. Right? It's what is this? What is it not? What can it do? What can't it do? For who is this? For who is this not? To who will this do it? And to who should it be doing? All these questions, right? So it's having an informed discussion about these things, and I really think that is an architect's job. At least my definition of architect, and I'm very aware that it's very
there's lots of views on
I
that.
know.
But yeah, of course. So I want to talk to you about the other mindset shift that I'm really passionate about, which is sustainability. And I think we met at Intersection a couple of years ago, and there I gave the talk about the need for rethinking sustainability. And it's interesting, like you talking about, the tokens, per watt, the cost, because I think about tokens per watt, efficiency, and actually a lot of people get quite horrified about how much AI is being used. But in a way, I'm like, actually no, because we have to bring the cost down. The efficiency will have to improve if we take it from a mass market. But I wanted your sort of take on that mindset shift on the sustainability and circular economy type thinking that architects can also bring their organisations.
I mean, it's totally not my field of focus, but I think it's a great example of our involvement, interest, almost leadership. Doesn't stop at tech, doesn't stop at the boundary of the data center, right? Doesn't stop at the boundary of the next version of a certain database. It's the holistic aspect, right? And not just the enterprise, but society it's part of, and the planet it's part of, and it's I'm actually surprised, and I shouldn't be, is that how many architects actually step up to that plate, and not only that they're allowed to, but they're invited to, right? There is a almost implicit understanding. This is also what an architect does. Actually, this is what specifically an architect does, this holistic aspect. And this figures And I wouldn't know about another job role that could tackle this.
Yeah.
Because yes, you can be a sustainability expert, and fair enough. But if you just look at this, you miss the bigger picture, right? I mean, there's always second order effects. There's always opportunity cost, and it's the and even if we don't use these words, we do use it in the bigger picture thing.
Maybe it's the systems thinking aspect, right? Because I think we look at the world through that sort of systems, because it's there's the technology system, but then there's also the business process, sort of business system that sits on top. There's the organisational ecosystem we talked about, and then I think the system we often forget is that natural ecosystem that underpins everything.
I
think
absolutely.
In our modern world, it's very easy just to sort of ignore that sort of nature layer, because we're so abstracted from it these days. Right? You know, in the city, you know, it's almost like we've tamed nature. We're in charge of it, and I think that's where I feel like hopefully we're starting to kind of get a better awareness, right, of the fact that we do live in an interconnected systems kind of well, but it's not all digital systems. There's natural systems there that we need to think more about. I mean,
it starts with a natural system, and then you have society of life and mankind and society and all these things. And it sounds wishy-washy, but I think it just has to be. I mean, it's almost like the base layers from Stuart Brand, right? I mean, you can't just focus. I mean, you can focus on one, but I think as architect, you need to focus on the whole cross-section all the way down to, life or nature.
That's a really interesting way of looking at it with the base layers, isn't it? Because, of course, you have, you know, on the one hand, we're talking about the sort of very innovative systems of differentiation, systems of innovation. But ultimately, all of this sits on top of systems of record, which then ultimately sit on top of natural systems that underpin all this stuff. And societal systems and other things.
Indeed.
So maybe there's an interesting visual there that helps sort of connect the dots between this slow evolving, but you know, mess with it too much at your peril, or you hit tipping points at the bottom, all the way through to the sort of innovation at the top. And that's the reason why I brought up base layer, and that's also the reason why I loved base layering, is that all these layers move at a space of their own.
Zou je het ook even storen? Hebben jullie het allemaal kunnen vinden? Hebben jullie nog iets nodig?
Nee, dat is helemaal goed zo.
Oké, prima.
Super.
Hebben jullie ook kunnen vinden waar je koffie en thee kunt pakken?
Nog niet, maar die is hier, hè?
Dat is die kant op, daar het einde rechts en dan links.
Fantastisch.
Koffie en alles.
Fantastisch. Doen we dat. Super, dank je.
Thank you.
I mean, we have to keep this in. It's
a shame we didn't have him on camera, but...
that is fantastic. I love this kind of thing. This is life.
Serendipity.
That's it, and that's the... No, I mean...
the pace layering.
Yeah, what I love about the pace layer is they have their own speed of change. And you cannot force this. And of course, we sometimes in our high modernist thinking, we think we can.
We're impatient, right? And we think we can push things quicker than sometimes they'll naturally get adopted or happen.
Yeah, but I find it liberating that you just accept. It moves in a certain pace.
Yes, okay.
And the only thing we can do is accept and adapt to it. Right? This morning I talked to a gentleman, and he was heavily complaining, not a company, not mine, about the legacy they built up over the 40 years. You know, it has a dynamic and a evolution of its own.
Yes.
It's almost an organism, a beast, a technium of its own.
We go back to the emergence and the ecosystem thing again, right?
Again, and it's and I think you cannot get rid of it right away. I mean, you have to adapt with it, and you know what? I mean, that's why we have anti-corruption layers. And of course, you can see typical architect. I abstract it way too easy, but it's the it's the adapting too, right? And that's also the earlier ecosystem I mentioned. We have to fit into the ecosystem.
Yes,
and it's not our ecosystem. Right, I mean, it's the...
Yeah, you've got to park your ego to a degree, haven't you?
You have to.
Yeah.
I mean, if I can mention that one, I used to do a lot of platform design workshops in the good old days. And the first thing we said, and we still do, by the way, in our workshops to the audience, for the first day, you cannot talk about your organization.
Okay.
Freaks people out.
And it makes sense, I guess, because it's about providing a service.
It typically tends to be incredibly liberating. That they actually discover parties they never talked about. Because they get overshadowed by just focusing on us and our direct customers, direct suppliers, the good old Michael Porter value chain, right? And it's much richer than it is.
Yeah.
And then after the first day, you get half a day you get to talk about you. What does it mean about us? And then typically people discover really new things. But this is the essence of ecosystem, I think. It's not about you. It's not your ecosystem. Yeah. You cannot build it. Yeah. You cannot buy it. You cannot design it.
You can be part of it.
You can be part of it. And you can what you can design is your position in the ecosystem.
And how you will interact with it.
And how you will interact. Or not. And with whom. And whom not. So it's all these things.
No, that's so obviously the world it feels to many the world's moving quite quickly. Back to our point about pace of change.
Yeah, it's true.
What would be your advice to architects right now, thinking about where looking at that uncertainty and the volatile world we sit in? We've obviously focused a lot on AI here, but we could equally have spoken about geopolitics and the uncertainty and that sort of side of things. Yeah. So where is your sort of head on? What should architects be doing to sort of think about navigating this? On the one hand, exciting world of opportunities. On the other hand, sort of risks and dangers that are coming up over the next few years. Yeah,
I'm going to give a very biased answer because my answer is probably the career direction I've been taking. Right, so it's No, I think it's really important that as architects we leave behind our technological legacy.
Okay.
We are more than that. We are more than TOGAF.
Yep.
For instance.
Sure.
And if you're the kind of person, you're listening, you think, but I love that and I focus on that one, that is great. But there is a very strong appetite, and I can prove it by showing my agenda for the kind of people and organizations that want to talk to me. They want to talk to me. There's a great appetite for seeing, the bigger picture. The system beyond technology, beyond business, but actually into society, and in the end, humanity. And I know that sounds very, very pretentious.
Yeah.
And the ability to condense all the mayhem, all the emergence, all the things that doesn't make sense in an ever-evolving story. Earlier I made a slightly joke about end state or target state.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist.
No.
What does exist is incremental truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You keep updating your story and feel comfortable in the story. You can literally say, I don't know. I think this is the potential, the spectrum, the cone, and dealing with that, let's say it, uncertainty or levels of uncertainty, but especially the ability to get that across in a clear and inviting way to a very broad audience. That's what I'm going to be pretentious, that's what the world needs.
I like that, and one of the main reasons is I feel like trying to go down the TOGAF and staying in your comfort zone, because let's be honest, a lot of architects have come from that technical side, that's their bread and butter, it's where they're comfortable, right?
Yeah, totally get that.
The danger of that though is, as we've just discussed, the technology is evolving to a point where actually the technology will be the best thing to go and ask about the technology estate, right? So actually, how do you be more human in an era where the technology is getting better and better at managing, not actually managing itself, but giving you the facts, giving you the answers, giving you the automation.
Yeah.
Surely it's the kind of combination of possibility and human endeavour that the architect should be helping navigate.
And also, I mean, one of the reasons why I think kind of strong on this outspoken positioning is also technology changed.
Yeah.
I mean, technology is now literally in the hands of everyone, right? My mother uses ChatGPT. I'm pretty sure when I go home, put my feet on the couch, right? Because lovely conversation, I put on the news. I just know there will be a news item that's related to technology. Maybe it's about that people from 12 years or younger shouldn't be allowed to be on Instagram, right? It's literally everywhere, right? And once upon a time, IT was in the IT department.
It was a cupboard.
It literally, or in the basement, and they would throw in a piece of meat once a week, right? I mean, it's the IT crowd, right? And that still exists to a certain degree, and not.
Right.
And there is this great, let's call it an opportunity, but also an invite. There is a great invite for people, organizations, for this kind of, let's call it architect. Or maybe we're going to give it another name. I have no idea. Call it thought leader. I have literally no idea. So that's an important one. Also, and I'm going to be, I think we should be more inviting to younger people.
Yes, definitely agree with that one.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're now in a position that architect is something what more towards, well, certainly the second half of a career. Typically a technical career, but a certain senior.
Yeah.
I think if you buy into this mind shift, a mindset shift, and having a mindset that can deal with shifts in mindset, a bit more matter.
Yeah.
You also can have that as a 30-year-old.
I'd agree with that, because I think we're struggling as a role from a lack of diversity, for sure. Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, we have, typically people that have been in technology the longest because they've perhaps got the war stories and know where the skeletons are buried, and therefore they're the trusted, safe pair of hands that are generally asked to go and lead these things or be involved in designing these things. But we're moving into a world where actually, no, it's more the human possibilities and the diversity of thought that I think are really, really important. So I agree with that. I mean, it's been worrying for me for a while that the role is potentially going to die out if we're not careful, because we aren't thinking about how do we encourage the next generation of thinkers. Yeah.
And I think, indeed, I totally agree. It's I thought I was rather strong in my articulation, but dying out is even stronger. No, and indeed, and that's why I said these two things. We need to broaden the role, the responsibility, and that also means it becomes more inviting to younger people.
Yes.
And it's and people who are not necessarily the kind of people who got all giddy because they got a computer at 14 years old, like I did. I mean, I'm the weird one. Okay, we are the weird one. Right? I'm going to make this a shared curse.
Yeah. No, and I think that for me, the architecture teams where there has been a diversity of background and career experience has been when I think the better decisions have got made. Right?
Yeah.
When it's people like you or I in the team, and it's not enough females or people from different cultures, you get groupthink. And to our point just now, the cone of possibilities gets smaller, right? Whereas if you have a broader range of people in the team, they can help you think about the boundaries and the other areas that you
It's
could
almost
explore.
group blindness. You just don't see them, right? Not because you're evil or obnoxious. You literally don't see them.
You're blindsided.
You're literally blindsided, and that's and then of course when it happens, when it becomes reality, we're totally caught off guard, and then it's all panic and mayhem. And I mean, there's this awful, fantastic graph, right, about enterprise adoption. No, God damn it, I said no, and then oh my God, it's happening. It's and that's what we get because we didn't see things coming. And the best way to guarantee that we have the widest cone, I'm really going to use this metaphor more often, that we have the widest cone, is just by having a greater spread in diversity, in taste, in age, in background, in hobbies. I mean,
and risk appetite as well. Right? Let's face it, because there are many architects I talk to who feel like they're if they were in charge, it would be the team of no. To your point about no, it's like. Actually, no, it's how do we enable things? But unfortunately, some are like, no, look, we need to manage the diversity, technology diversity in the state. We need to standardise, and it's like there's the policeman or police person, police sort of persona of an architect, and then there's more the innovator, which I think you're more on the side of the innovator. But
that's probably
But I think you need a balance. You can't all have innovators because otherwise, all of a sudden, you don't get the reliability, you don't get the other non-functional requirements the organisation needs. Right? So it needs to be
indeed. No, I mean, I thought I really want to make this an explicit. Oh, totally. I mean, it has to be this balanced scene.
Yeah.
But in the context of the wider cone. See, I'm reusing it there. But that's and that's where the discussion must be.
Yeah.
Right, and and no could also mean no, not now. Right. Maybe it's if the cone indeed, if we move in the cone over there, it could very well be, right? So it's having, it's having a longer term vision, right? I mean, we often talk about Horizon 3, if you know that one model.
No.
Oh, well, it's a very, very nice model, 3 horizons.
Okay.
Horizon 1 is the one you're doing now. Technology you know, customers you know.
Okay.
Horizon 2 is, technology you know but not using, customers you know and not using. and horizon 3 is the unknown unknowns.
Right, okay. So it's a bit like the adjacent...
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and that you spend a bit more time in making the unknown unknowns knowns.
Mm-hmm.
Knowns. Okay, well, I'm going to stop there. But it's the explorative nature. I think that is so that no becomes no, not now.
Right. Yeah.
Or no, unless. And that's not trying to be typical Dutch compromising. Maybe it is, but that is what you need to do with complexity, because we don't have this target state guaranteed. Just not.
Yeah. So Ron, this has been an amazing conversation, as I suspected it would be.
It's fun.
It's fun.
We should do this more often.
Yeah. So in fact, if people want to catch more of your thinking on future architecture,
yeah.
Where should they go? Where should they go check things out?
For sure on LinkedIn.
Okay.
It's the I have an email address. Probably gonna put it in the show notes.
Sure.
Right. And I keep promising myself there will be a website soon.
Do you know what? I'm the same. I've not had one but I feel like actually the problem with social media is it's very transient, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And actually, some of the architecture episodes are fairly evergreen. Some of them aren't, some of them are. And it would be nice actually to have somewhere where that content is sort of catalogued somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's on my list. Do you know what I was thinking? Go full circle. I'll probably use generative AI to help me create that site, right?
I'm doing exactly the same. but up till now, not having a website was almost a guilty pleasure.
Right.
Website? More? Right. No, I don't need one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but LinkedIn is great for this one.
Very good. Yeah, I mean, we probably both need websites that we can feed the large language models with the right training data, right?
Yes.
So.
Yes. That is what we have been doing.
Very good. All right, Ron. Well, thanks very much again.
Thank you for having me. It was really fun. Yeah.
Great.
I learned a lot. The cone thing. Oh, it's mine now.
Okay, great. Well, I'm glad. I thought that would be a common one that you would be using already. So I'm glad to have given you that one. I can't claim credit. I'll put it in the show notes as well. Where Magnus Lindqvist, who I came across him actually. Just last thing I say before we close, at a Gartner conference on enterprise architecture. Actually, and he was the closing keynote, and he was talking all about the sort of failure recycling and a whole bunch of really interesting terms for me about innovation and future. So he's a futurologist.
Yeah.
So he's a fascinating guy. So well worth going and checking out. So I'll put that in the show notes too. But yeah, with that, I will stop because otherwise we will go on all day. Thanks, Rob.